Well, good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here, really, really wonderful, and I thank you all for the opportunity. And I see some faces that I love and I know for years, and I see some new faces. So welcome to me, and thank you for having me. And, you know, what I want to do today, as I always say, is that when we study any concept in the Torah, it's not about information. It's not about trying to become necessarily wiser, to say we know something about a new topic. Every single time we study the Torah, it's really about making it very, very contemporary and very pertinent to our lives as far as how this changes us, because we know that in the Torah, there was so much that was omitted, and only that which is pertinent for all time, for all people, and in every little piece of their lives is here. That means when I study, there is something there for me, there's something takeaway that can, if I allow it, to transform me for my life. So today, what I would like to discuss, because now we are in the chapters of the desert, I would like to discuss someone who's not discussed very much. I would like to discuss Aaron, the high priest. He's very misunderstood, very, very, and partially because his voice is not heard. But his voice is not heard, as we will explore together today, Bezrat Hashem, is because of who he was, and that is part of who he was, but he was extremely, extremely present with his people. Hillel the Elder, in Ethics of Our Fathers, says something very interesting. And in case you're not familiar with Hillel the Elder, he was the Prince of Israel. He was the head of the Sanhedrin, which was the supreme body of law and the judiciary, legislative body for the Jewish people. He was the head of the Sanhedrin. He was the Prince of Israel. And he said in Ethics of Our Fathers that we should be the students of Aaron. This sounds nice, but it also sounds strange. It sounds a bit strange. Why was Aaron singled out? Moshe was not singled out. Abraham, David, we can go on and on. There's no shortage. So the question remains, and Bezrat Hashem, we will try to do this together. Why was Aaron singled out? So in Micah chapter 6, verse 8, and this is what it says. He has told you, O man, what is good. What does Hashem require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? So that's it's like a recipe, like a shorthand recipe that probably covers it all. What does Hashem want? You know, we're in this world, like my husband was talking about yesterday, making it real people serving God. Like, what does he want? So this is what he wants. This is what he wants. He wants justice, loving kindness, and walking humbly with Hashem. Now, the oral tradition teaches us that the newly born nation of Israel received three great patrons. These three great patrons what helped formulate the people into a nation that can continue its march in history. And so they came out as slaves, and they needed these three great patrons. And of course, we're talking about Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. These were the three great patrons, and we've discussed Miriam. I don't know about here. Moses is, everyone talks about Moses, so I thought I would talk about Aaron. And you know, we're told that in the merit of these three righteous people, the nation of Israel received three gifts in the desert. Of course, the manna in the merit of Moses, the bubbling well in the merit of Miriam, and the clouds of glory in the merit of Aaron. Now the clouds of glory and the well of Miriam and the manna it's not that they were gifts because of these great people that were in their midst. It's deeper than that. It's that these described the people. These were illuminations of who these people were. And we will begin to explore this, and it will become clearer. What is it about Aaron? What is it about the clouds of glory? Why was Aaron Aaron? Why are we all to be students of Aaron, specifically Aaron? Like, what was the manifestation here of the clouds of glory? How did this highlight the essence of Aaron? So when we say what Micah says, do justice, that's Moshe. He brought the law. Love kindness, that's Aaron. And walk humbly with your God, that's Miriam. And each one of these is a conversation in of itself, but we are delving specifically into love kindness and Aaron. So if we say that Aaron is the silent partner of Moshe, we have to know that they were really a team. They were a team. Moshe was the truth, and Aaron was the kindness. And on the simplest level, really, they were a rectification for all the brothers that came before. If we're talking about, we have Yaakov and Esau, we have Joseph and his brothers, we have Isaac and Ishmael, we have Cain and Abel, Cain and Hevel. We see, as the book of Genesis moves on, we see a rectification taking place on that level. They were such a team. And I think that it becomes very, very highlighted for us when we are really first introduced to Aaron. The true introduction of Aaron, and we say so many times that the first place something is found, there is the essence of the thing. That means the first time there's a letter in the Torah. We've taught this about the letter Samach and women. That's the first time that the letter Samach, the round letter, is seen ever in the Torah, is regarding the creation of a woman. So that's a letter. We see it with all sorts of ideas. We see it with all sorts of words. The first time it is present in the Torah, there lie the secrets, the treasure of the root meaning for this particular idea, this particular word, this particular letter even. So the first time we are really introduced to Aaron, we see in Exodus chapter 4, verse 14. So there's a whole thing going on with Moshe, and he's not feeling comfortable with his role, and he's bargaining with God and claiming that he can't do this thing. And it says as follows: the wrath of Hashem burned against Moses, and he said, "Is there not Aaron your brother, the Levite? Aaron your brother, the Levite." Okay, now with the Torah is very sparing with words, so we know he knew he was his brother, so we don't have to say brother. He knew he was a Levite. They were from the same family. Aaron, your brother, the Levite, because he, as we see, will be each of one of these things are highlighting the depth of who Aaron is. I know that he will surely speak. Moreover, this is where it gets really important. Behold, he is going out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will rejoice in his heart. That is Aaron. The first thing, there's another thing here. The behold in Hebrew is v'hineh. Hineh, every single time, without exception, in the entire Tanakh, when the word v'hineh, which means behold, is used, it means something unexpected, without exception. So here it is. V'hineh, he's coming out to meet you, and he will be glad in his heart. What's the deal? What's unexpected here? Now, this is a testimony from Hashem, who knows people inside. We can know someone sort of, outside, from how they manifest themselves in their behavior, in their speech, in their dress, everything about them, in their tone of voice. So we can get clues and helps to manifest for us who that person is. However, only Hashem could know what a person's like inside. And here is the testimony in the first introduction, really, of Aaron. He will be glad in his heart. What does that mean? He's not acting glad that his brother was chosen to be the leader. He's not pretending to be glad because it's politically correct or it's the right thing to do. He truly, truly, truly is glad in his heart. And it's okay. What's very ironic is that he's the spokesman. Aaron becomes a spokesman, and we don't hear his voice practically at all. The most words we ever hear from Aaron is when he's begging Moshe and Hashem to heal Miriam. That's the most words. It's like, wow, it's like an overdose. It's a whole verse of Aaron's voice. It's incredible. So he's joyous in his heart. There's no tinge of regret. There's no jealousy. It's true. And why is it? What about Aaron allows him to be joyous in his heart? Because this is the first thing we're seeing about him. There is a very deep emunah. This is a reflection of tremendous faith. What does that mean? When a person is jealous, or when a person is making comparisons, when a person is competitive, when a person gets into a space like that, on a deeper level, if we really, really get into it, he's believing on some level at least that Hashem did not design his package deal for him. And Hashem did not give him the exact raw materials that he needs to accomplish his unique task, because his soul is unique from all the souls that were ever born, and Hashem tailor-made all his givens to him, the ones that are revealed assets, and the ones that may even seem that they're not exactly assets but limitations. But the entire package is our raw materials to make our stamp, to bring about our own rectification, to change Hashem's world from our corner. And that's exactly what we need. And if it's not been given to me, it's not what I need. It's really not what I need. And it's not an easy thing to get to. It's really not an easy thing. But that was Aaron from the outset. He understood that what's given to me is designed to help me become me. It's not about me becoming somebody else. So therefore, there is no jealousy in his heart. There's no regret in his heart. And there's only pure joy in his heart that his brother is becoming his brother. I am happy, and I will become me. I will become me. So it resonated from a very, very deep place within, and it is not for naught that Aaron wears the choshen. He wears the breastplate over his heart. His heart is pure. His heart is pure. Like my husband was saying last night, we see this over and over and over and over again. It's the entire theme of the Torah. We get what we do. People have this very strange concept that Hashem is this Old Testament God with his long beard and a scary face and a stick, waiting to get us. And, this is not coming from Torah sources. It's coming from really not understanding the Torah sources at all. And we see this again and again, unfortunately, when people don't know how to study the Torah and don't know with who to study the Torah. But when we really begin to study the Torah in depth, we see the opposite is the case. So we get what we do. We bring things upon ourselves. That's how it is. So if for the complex, we see that in what we're talking about last night, where the nation said we don't want to go into the land. We don't want to go into the land. It's too scary. It's this, it's that. So they didn't go into the land. They didn't want it. They didn't go. That was what they brought. So Aaron brings the choshen, the breastplate, to himself, because it's also for the good. He was able to wear the choshen, the breastplate, and of course the choshen is all about the unity We know that the embedded in the breastplate were the 12 the 12 tribes, the stone of each tribe. So, because Aaron was all about unity, he was unified with his God, as we will see. He was unified with himself. He wasn't conflicted. He knew he had to become himself. He was unified with his brother. He was unified with his role. He was unified with his people. Aaron exemplified unity. So, what is unity? Unity also is what we call it shalom, peace. We call it harmony. It's shlemut. Shlemut, wholeness, is realizing that everything is really ultimately part of one thing. Everything emanated from Hashem's will, as it were. Everything emanated from Hashem himself. So everything really is part of that unity. So that means the fragmented pieces in our lives are sometimes very, very hard to read. Very hard to read. But Aaron was about reuniting all these things, and we will see, everything he went through, everything he did, we will see it's all about bringing together the different pieces of the puzzle and helping others as well realize it's all connected, it is all one. Now, of course, in the pocket, in the breastplate was the Urim and Thummim. Now, the Urim and Thummim we know was it was a tool for divine guidance for the people. It was all about helping to project Hashem's will to the people. Now, why was Aaron able to be the vessel for this, to wear this? And it's really, really because he saw himself as the vessel. It wasn't static. He could be a pipeline to take in and give it out. Why? Because it wasn't stuffed up with his ego, with his doubt, with his self-doubt, with his lack of faith. It was really, really and truly in a remarkable way. And again, we go back to Hillel the Elder, and we will see deeper what is Hillel the Elder talking about. Be a student of Aaron. There are so many role models. Be a student of Aaron. And this ability to take out, because it didn't get stuck in a maze inside. It didn't get stuck. It wasn't that static. So that is, we're beginning to see, what is Aaron. Of course, as high priest, Aaron goes into the Holy of Holies one day a year. So it's basically man, time, and place. This was a converging of humanity, time, and space. Again, this unification. Everything he did was about unification. So the manifestation of him were the clouds of glory. The clouds of glory brought, if we know, of course, the security. He held the nation in one big hug, this whole unified hug. But not only that, the clouds of glory, as it traveled, smoothed out the spaces as it was going ahead, the rocks, the mountains. It smoothed everything over. It unified the space. It smoothed out the space. That too, as we will see, is Aaron. It's not ending. If we look how when his two sons died, the worst nightmare of any parent, when Nadab and Abihu died, which is a whole story, a huge story of itself, in Leviticus in chapter 10. What does it say there? We see, it's incredible. What does Aaron say there when his two sons have just been taken from him? He says nothing. In Leviticus chapter 10, verse 3, it says about Aaron, and it's so much more than the words itself. It says, Vayidom Aharon. Vayidom Aharon. And Aaron was still. Aaron was still. The visual that you get on that is this unbelievable stillness, which seems superhuman, which is about him totally present in the tragedy with Hashem. This does not mean he did not mourn. This does not mean he was not brokenhearted. This does not mean any of that. It means that in the worst nightmare of any parent, he was able to totally be with Hashem. It's mind-boggling. We see it with his staff. We see it with his hand in the egel, in the golden calf. We see it in his hand when they were speaking about Moshe. When anytime we begin to pick apart any of these events that he was involved with, it all came back to the same thing: bringing the harmony, bringing the unity, understanding that everything is part of Hashem and everything is exactly tailor-made for each individual. It all goes back to that he is consistent by word and deed, through thick and thin, through every single thing that happens to him. When the menorah, when the menorah was given over as a job for Aaron to light the menorah in chapter 8, he didn't take his task lightly at all. He didn't take his task lightly. But what's very, very interesting is that it says the words, he's told what to do, and then the verse says in, I believe, chapter 8, verse 3, it says, Vayas ken Aharon. And Aaron did it. Now, Hashem told him to do something. He's the high priest. It's clear he's going to do it, correct? So we just finished saying, we say it again and again, the Torah is very sparing with words. Okay? So why does it say, and Aaron, Vayas ken Aaron, and Aaron did thus? He did this. That doesn't belong there. That is unnecessary. But no, Rashi, some of you are familiar with Rashi, the great commentator, answers with something that makes us question even more. So Rashi answers, also in very few words. He said, we learn Sheloshina, that he didn't change. Okay? Now the way it's, the connotation, the simple connotation is he didn't change anything. He did exactly what Hashem said. But no, let's go to the simple words. He didn't change. That means Aaron was instructed to bring the light of the 6 days of creation into the world, to illuminate the world with Hashem's light, this unbelievable job. And he did it exactly as Hashem told him to do it, and he did not change. He was the same as he was before. He was the same eye to eye with the people, as we will see. That's going to be our main focus, how he was with the people. He didn't change. Every single thing about Aaron will point to this. We're not going to go into all of them. I wanted to give you a taste. And as we always know, Torah is to be studied and to be questioned over and studied again, because each and every time we'll find something totally different. And so, Bezrat Hashem, I am just giving you a few ideas of how to begin to study Aaron. It's incredible. The more you dig, the more you will find with Hashem's help. So he was deeply motivated toward this unification of everything: self, people, other, relationship with Hashem, everything, humanity, everything. It was, if you could say, it was him that brought about the brothers' rectification, because it was, behold, it was a surprise, and Moshe was all nervous there, and here he comes. He was all about unifying and bringing back the tikkun of wholeness, because in essence, from the second that Hashem brought reality into the world, everything was scattered, and it had to be gathered up again, because Hashem allowed himself to be scattered out. And then after eating from the tree, even further and more complicated, and Aaron was all about unifying those sparks again. Now, the only yurtzeit, the anniversary of death, the only anniversary of death that is explicitly written in the Torah is Aaron's. His yurtzeit is coming up. We're about to start Tammuz, and then the anniversary of his death is the 1st of Av, the month after Tammuz, the 1st of Av. And when he left the world, it says in Numbers chapter 20, verse 29, he was mourned It says that about other greats in the Torah, but it says it a bit differently about Aaron. It says he was mourned by Kol Bet Yisrael, the entire house of Israel. Again, now that we're beginning to think about words, why this word choice? Why so many words? Why for Aaron? Why here? Kol, all, Beit, the house, Israel. Why didn't say he was mourned by Israel? Or he's mourned by all. Kol Beit Yisrael, the entire house of Israel. What happened was, Aaron, was buried on Hor HaHar. His brother and his son went up. You're familiar with this very moving story about how he was buried. It was so very moving that Moshe himself longed to be buried that way, and Hashem said, I will bury you that way too. It was a very moving experience. Down from the mountain comes Moshe and Eleazar, no Aaron. And the people were in absolute denial. They couldn't believe it. They wouldn't accept that he was gone. They could not accept that he was gone. They said that Aaron, who was able to stop the plague and go into the people between the dead and the living, and he was able to stop a plague of the angel of death, how could he be taken? It's not possible. They were so in love with this man. This man was everything to them, and we will see why. And they could not accept his death, and so they couldn't begin to mourn. So Moshe begged Hashem to help them begin to mourn. And the oral tradition teaches that Hashem allowed the nation to see some sort of vision of Aaron laid out and the ministering angels eulogizing him. And this was the first thing that enabled them to begin the mourning process and to begin to get some closure, to accept the fact that he was really no longer among them. But the very fact that it says the entire household, that means it's not like one person didn't like him. The entire household. He was a unifier, and therefore that's what he brought. Beit, the house. What did Aaron do for the households of Israel? It's a very famous story, and some of you may know it, but I think we all learn it in a little, preschool fashion, so we're going to go a little bit deeper. So it goes like this. Aaron's walking down the street. This is what the oral tradition teaches us. He sees two people that are not getting along. He goes to one. And he says, you know what? He says, he's really sorry. He just adores you. He can't believe this. He wants it to be right. He just loves you so much. And then he goes to the other guy. And he says the same thing. Or he goes to the husband and then to the wife or to the neighbors. And he says the same thing. And then they're walking down the street and they meet and they hug and they say, oh, and it's all because Aaron did all this orchestrating behind the scenes. Okay, that's a cute story, but it's a little silly because they'll start talking and in 1 minute it's very clear that Aaron pulled one over on them, right? Because that's not what the oral tradition is telling us here. The oral tradition is going much deeper. What Aaron was doing when he confronted the individual, what he was doing was he helped the other person see and feel and experience the other perspective in such a way to have real empathy for the other human being. Now, he was able to do this to bring greater awareness to the other person, so much so that when they joined up again, they were seeing each other differently. That's what this oral tradition is actually teaching us about Aaron. Now again, everything we're learning today, God willing, is a transformative experience, which means It's not an interesting anecdote. It's about what we do, God willing, in our own selves. So what does Hillel say exactly? He says, be the student of Aaron, but he goes into detail. He says like this: love peace, pursue peace, love all of Hashem's creatures, creations, and bring them to Torah. That also sounds like a nice little statement. Pat, surface. Love peace, pursue peace, love all of Hashem's creations, and bring them to Torah. Now the thing is, there's a lot here, a tremendous amount here. First, let's go to the Hebrew. It says, Haveh Talmidim shel Aharon. Haveh. Haveh means be. But the tense, if any of you know Hebrew, Haveh is present ongoing. Present ongoing. And it's telling us right there that this is the work of a lifetime. This is why we've been given 120 years on this earth. It's a present, ongoing process of development going on as we live. It's not been there, done that. It's ongoing, deepening, more insight, more work, falling down, getting up. That's what we are being told from the outset. When we look at this, love, peace, and pursue peace, these do not go together. They do not, if you think about it, they do not go together. When I love peace, when I love harmony, when I love the unity of Hashem's being in this world, on any level, on the human level, on the emotional level, on the spiritual level, we could say loving peace is passive. Passive, okay? Passive. It's all inside here. Pursuit of is active. It's taking a stand for something, and as we will see, these are conflicting ideas. Perhaps these are perhaps a conflict, because if somebody really loves, the peace, they don't want to get involved. They want to gently close the door because they love it so much, and again, it's like sticky, it's rocking the boat. I don't want to go there. Don't want to go there. When I pursue peace, I could also be going in the wrong direction. I could be so strong, so justified, so right, that I will demand and pursue. So we see these two ideas are both brought down here because loving peace and pursuing peace are very fine tuned. That how do we remain a lover of without losing the ability to be a fighter for? Okay? Because the love of could prevent action, and the fighter for could prevent love. We, getting carried away with ourselves, rah, 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 things get lost in the shuffle. So if we could lose perspective, we could be too invested, we could be too passionate or too justified. And when that happens, we always have to be measuring and balancing ourselves. Are we loving so much that we don't want to get involved, which means we're really not invested in fixing, in the wholeness of Hashem, in the harmony of His creation, in the harmony of brethren, of siblings, of people, of nations? Are we too passive? Are we protecting ourselves? Or are we losing our ability to love for the cause? So we always have to be monitoring ourselves. These are brilliant words. These are brilliant. None of the words of the sages are simple. None of the words of the sages are shallow. They require much, much contemplation. So if we become too passive and not involved, we can't change anything. And it's not about caring about the other person. It's about self-preservation, if we really think about it. If a person could say, you're okay, I'm okay, that's not love. That is self-preservation. That is even disinterest, perhaps. And then on the other side, when we have the active pursuit of, that might be about me and not the other. Just like the first is about me and not the other. So how it's very, very, very fine-tuned, because we can be extremely tolerant to the point of acceptance that will lower our expectation in another human being. And we could be overly motivated that crushes the other human being. It's brain surgery is what it is. So Aaron walked this tightrope in which it was so clear that he had the other person's best interest in mind, that he adored them, that he respected them, and that he believed in them. He never lowered his expectations of the other person. What is that? It's not you're okay, I'm okay. It's not just giving up. It's saying, I desperately want you to be what you can be. I see it, I taste it, I feel it. But I never lose sight of the compassion, the respect, and the love. So, not so driven as to lose sight, and not so loving as to crumble and hide your face. Very fine line. Because I don't truly care about someone, I can't motivate them to anything. And that's why the next piece of this verse is loving and pursuing and bringing them to Torah. We can bring someone to nothing if they don't have our best interests in mind, if we are not secure in understanding that they believe in us and it's about us. We can't do it. We cannot do it. So Aaron was in the eye of the storm, time and time again. He ends up in the eye of the storm in the Korach rebellion. And it seems very ironic based on what we're saying, because we finished saying that we don't want to alienate anybody, we don't want to diminish anybody, we don't want to turn our back on anybody, we don't want to give up on anybody. It's all about them and not about us. And then we get to the Korach rebellion. And Korach was a great man. Korach was a very great man. And Korach destroyed himself with his deeds, with his words. He proved himself out of the job. He disqualified himself. His own actions, just as Aaron's actions in this rebellion, proved his qualifications for the job. So each revealed who they truly were. Because Aaron says not a word. Where is Aaron through this rebellion? Not a word. Not a word. Because he was real. It was really altruistically about Hashem. It was not, it's mind-boggling. You know, he's being torn apart publicly with this rebellion, and all he ever did was try to unify, and he was never out there. You don't hear his voice, and this is what's happening to him. And it was all about altruism. So this is exactly what Hillel the elder is saying. This is exactly what he's saying. So, you know, Korach disqualified himself. He proved himself to be self-serving. It wasn't about the people. Why wasn't Aaron's voice heard? His voice wasn't heard because he said, okay, Hashem, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not fit for this task. And he waited and he wanted to see because he really wanted to be the servant of Hashem. In Numbers chapter 16, verse 12, it says, Lama talonu, and it's written Lama talinu. Now, I don't know, some of you may be familiar with this. You may be familiar with this lesson that in the Torah there are letters, there are purpose misspelling of words, that they are read differently, they are pronounced differently than they are written in the Torah. And it's not a typo, because you find this through the generations, through all the countries in the world, the same typo. This is the part of the oral tradition imprinted onto the Torah, that sometimes letters are missing, letters are smaller, letters are bigger, letters are spelled out only to be pronounced differently. So here, in regarding the Korach rebellion, there is one such word. And we'll find it in Numbers 16:12, Lama talonu, and talinu, which what they're doing is, in the verse, is exchanging between the written and the pronunciation between a vav and a yud. So let's look at Numbers 16 right here, verse 12. See, let me see in the Hebrew. Yeah. So in the English you don't see it as usual. No, excuse me. It's verse 11, not 12. I'll read it in the English, but you won't get it in the English, and that's why it's so important to learn Hebrew. I hope everyone here is learning Hebrew. Okay. Therefore, you and your entire assembly that are joining together are against Hashem. This is what Moshe is saying. And as for Aaron, what is he that you protest against him? What is he that you protest? The word protest is spelled differently than it is written. And only when we start to look at it in the Hebrew, it says, Mahu, what is he? Ki ta li nu. And so it's pronounced ta li nu, and it's written ta lo nu, okay, with a vav. The yud is the smallest letter in the alphabet. The yud usually symbolizes Hashem. But why does it symbolize Hashem? Because it's so contained. It's one. It's everything. It's everything all in one, all wrapped up. It's like this nugget of oneness. So we have that Yud, remember Aaron, and we have the Vav. What did we say Aaron was? Why did he merit wearing the breastplate with the Urim and Tumim to be a conduit? That's all he was, because there was no ego. It was a conduit. Why? What is a Vav? From top to down, from down to top. It's a pipe. It's a pipe. It's an umbilical cord. It just flows. There's nothing there. And that's what Aaron was. He was a connector, because he saw himself as nothing. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. So in that one misspelling, we see Moshe is expressing, and Hashem is expressing, the brokenheartedness of how incredulous, Moshe just falls on his face. What could you say? it's outrageous. They can't believe it. The accusation is outrageous. And so Aaron, so this is representing Aaron's vesselhood. Okay. So we have, this is such a terrible tragedy because Korach was a great man and he got consumed by self, and that's really, the tragedy. The earth just opened up and swallowed him, and we all come from earth. We all come from earth. And what are we if we're just earth? We're earth with the tselem, with the divine image in us. So again, was that the Old Testament God waiting to get us around the corner, or is it about creating ourselves and our own consequences, creating them? So, but we have this whole episode with the fire pans, and Hashem instructed them to all to take the fire pans in Numbers 17, and in number 17, and then they were all consumed. But what's really, really, really part of all of this is what happened to those fire pans. You could think that this rebellion is so egregious, so horrible, so incorrigible, so beyond rectification, that these people should be blotted away, no memory, nothing. And that's not what you see. It's not what you see. What you see is that the fire pans were hammered together to make the covering for the altar. The fire pans that were used by the rebels, that were saying, I don't believe that Hashem is choosing Aaron. I don't believe he should be here. It's all of us. It's us. It's us. It's us. It's us. And you see that the unification here, again, everything Aaron is involved, cannot touch Aaron without being a unifier ultimately, because that's what he was. That's what he was giving off. That's what happened around him. That's why everyone loved him. It became this covering. Of course, what does the Mizbeach, what does the altar symbolize? We bring there the karbanot, the offerings. What's the word karban in Hebrew? The root is karov, to draw close. It's about coming close. So again, for specifically for that, because the first thing we could say here is that Hashem doesn't give up on anybody. Really, really, really. It was able to be put back, remembered, fixed on some level. We can draw close. We could say that on one level. We could say it on another level, which is equally true. It was a covering. It was a cloak. It was a beged. A beged is a garment. Beged is the same, spells exactly with the same letters as boged, which means a betrayer. Why is a garment a betrayer? Right. First of all, we know that in the garden, that was when clothing was first created for people, because we betrayed our own best selves of who we could be, and we needed a garment to cover us. But why? What about a cloak? It covers us, which means it's the outward expression of who we are, and that's very limiting. You look at a person, you look how they look, or how they're dressed, or where they live, or what their job is. And that's the outer cloak, and you come to all sorts of conclusions and assumptions based on what they look like from the outside. And this greatly diminishes a human being, greatly diminishes them, and greatly misleads us. So when they were looking, they saw Aaron all the wrong way, and we could do that too. And it's up to us how to look and how to see, and realize that on one hand, the beged was given because Hashem doesn't give up on us. Okay, so now you got to do it with a beged, with a garment, and it makes it harder. Makes it very much harder to know what's really going on inside. But I'm not giving up on you. I'm not giving up on you. But know that it's our perceptions. Our perceptions can betray the content. So, and Aaron was exactly the opposite, because Aaron, when he looked at a person, why was he the person that they loved so much? Why do they trust him? You think you think about the trust that they had for Aaron. Why? Because they really were secure in knowing that when he looked at them, he saw them inside, who they are, lovingly, simultaneously with who they could be. They felt that confidence. There was that trust. He saw the core person. And so, this whole thing with these fire pans being transformed into something else, that's what Aaron was always doing for people, transforming them into something else, because he really had faith in them. He had faith in them. So the aftermath of the Korach episode was horrible. It was so many, there was such a traumatic experience for the people, such a terrifying experience for the people, and trust eroded very badly. You look in chapter 16, chapter 17, you'll see it for yourselves. It was just, there was the Korach, there was this plague because the people said, you killed this assembly of God, and it was like nobody knew what was going on. Everyone was very, very afraid by what Korach brought to them, and it took its toll. And so at the end of the whole thing, I just want to say one more thing to go back to the Mizbeach, because I wanted to say it and it slipped my mind. That's why the priesthood is such, because when a person comes to bring an offering in the temple, it's a very vulnerable moment. Very vulnerable. I'm coming here with my vulnerability, with my fears, with my mistakes, with my misdeeds, feeling the smallness in the presence of Hashem, feeling overwhelmed by the merit, the gift of being able to stand in the presence of Hashem. And it's a very, very vulnerable moment, this whole interaction that takes place, through the role of the priest, who the priest is not a go-between. That's not ever, and we know this the more we study Torah. We could talk to Hashem at any minute, any time. But this is my husband's topic, and he would have to explain this very deeply, with the roles of the Kohanim and what's going on there with all the offerings in the Mikdash, in the temple. But on the level that we're talking about Aaron, coming and allowing yourself to be vulnerable before Aaron, before a priest that way, there has to be that trust that we were talking about, what Hillel the elder was teaching, that I know that you have my best interest in mind, and this is not about ego, this is about truly respecting and caring for and knowing what could be. And so, again, in every piece of Aaron's life, this will reflect itself. As I said before, it's extremely consistent. So when we get to the end of this horrible tragedy with Korach and the people, and again I said Korach was a great man, and this was a terrible loss to the people. It took a terrible toll on them emotionally, the upheaval of it. So Moshe is told to take these dry sticks from all the heads of tribes, and everyone is to engrave the name of that tribe on it, and the one who it flowers by is the one that will be clearly the one that Hashem has chosen, because there still wasn't the trust back. It was these shake-ups, it cost them. So if we find this, we find this in after the rebellion. Okay, I'm not going to bother looking for it now. But it says that Aaron's staff gave off a perach, a tzitz, and a pri. A flower, a bud, and a fruit. And again, the question is, why can't it just say it flowered? Because each thing is something. A flower, a bud, and a fruit. this is a process. This is a process. Aaron looked at the dry twig of a person before him, saw enough to enable the person through the process because he saw the fruit. He saw it, he tasted it, he smelled it, the fruit. Because he had their best interest in mind. He truly believed in them. He truly cared about them. He truly respected them where they were. So this is, again, a manifestation of how Aaron dealt with the people in his life. And so it was, as I said, this whole thing was necessary because there was no trust, and the oral tradition teaches that actually what Moshe did was he took one dry twig and he cut it into 12 pieces because he was thinking someone's going to say, but that twig was already rooted or it had more moisture in it than the other one. And then he took Aaron's and he put it somewhere in the middle, not on one of the ends, because he put them all in one big, again, unifying, one big lump. They said, oh, if he would put it there, it had more airflow, something. The whole thing was, all this was going on. What is all this teaching us? It's teaching us that the upheaval was horrendous, and the trust had to be renewed. And Aaron, again, was the tool for bringing about this trust to come back. And so, how is it? Aaron sees holistically. He's looking at a person in his very, very broken state. But we said he sees the fruit. That's again, this is the takeaway. This is the takeaway. Everything that we're learning today, as I said in the beginning, is how are we to learn from this, to grow from this? How do we take this into our families? What do we do with it? So Aaron sees the person in a holistic way. In other words, he loves him enough not to be passive, right? It's not you're okay, I'm okay, do what you want, or giving up on another person. No, hopeless, useless. It wasn't that. So he was like loving him enough and pursuing him enough. But the pursuit didn't lose sight of the respect. Because we said, we could get very entrenched in the pursuit and we have the cause, and the person was trodden under. Like, we're going to get this person shaped up. They're going to fix their lives. I know they could do it. Rah, rah, rah. Get here right now. Do this, do that. And where is the divine image? This person has been trampled under our enthusiasm. So we have Aaron, the high priest, this balancing act of not turning his back, seeing the person exactly as he is, and seeing him exactly as he could be. So he has the compassion, he has the imagination and the belief, and he has my best interest in mind. That's the magic recipe. It was clear. It was clear. So that's the trajectory of this flower, this bud, and this fruit. Because he sees beyond the dry twig that's before him right now into the latent potential identity of the person. And he knows how, through the balancing act, to help encourage it out, to help it flower. And the truth is, you could see, it's in the winter, there's a bunch of dried trees, and you don't know what they are. You don't know what they are, so you're not amazed by them. You're not appreciative of them. When do you know what they are? When they flower, when they begin to flower, when they give their fruit, then you know. You walk by them 100 times without noticing, without caring, and then suddenly you see it and you start to appreciate it. So Aaron had that before, during, and after. Remember, he didn't change. He didn't start to think that he was great because he was able to do this. Remember, he brought Hashem's light down through the menorah, v'lo shina. Nothing about him changed because he knew he was a vessel. And there was no ego. It's a very tough act to follow. But this again, Hashem doesn't expect us to be perfect. We're going to fall 100 times at least, again and again and again. But just like, Hashem believes in us. Aaron is expressing a godly manifestation of belief in us. So no one was inconsequential in Aaron's eyes. Everyone was, in his imagination, who they could be. And so when the plague happened in chapter 17, it says that he ran into the midst of the assembly. Find it. Okay, first of all, we say first in 11, Moses said to Aaron, "Take the fire pans and put it on the fire from up on the altar and place the incense and go quickly to the assembly and provide atonement for them, for the fury has gone out from the presence of Hashem. The plague has begun." Okay, so first of all, the incense. They were getting into this. These, how do you say, deot k'dunimot? But these preconceived notions that the incense is dangerous. Because look what happened to the 250. Or look what happened to the sons of Aaron. So they were getting the wrong idea. The first thing that's going on here is a huge lesson. It is not the tool. It is how the tool is used. Everything has good in it and bad in it, blessing and curse in it, everything. Everything in Hashem's world. The Torah is very about material living. There's no taboos. There's nothing that, this is not good. We are supposed to live in Hashem's world, with everything that is available in Hashem's world. And we get these ideas into our head, we get very superstitious about things, or we cut off pieces of our lives or our personality because we think there are problems with that. There are problems with how we manifest it and how we use it and how we produce with it. And the first thing that is being taught here, we will see the incense. The incense is now going to be associated with saving lives. Because the lesson is about, you have to understand, everything is a tool in Hashem's world. The Torah is an instruction manual. We take care of our computers and our cars, and we would not dream of using them without reading the instruction manual, because they're precious, they're expensive, we want them to last. But when we go into our lives and we don't read the instruction manual, what are we doing? That's what we're doing. So when we want to open up, we want to look. So he's saying, no. It's not the thing. It's how it's used, how you're using it, how you're manifesting. Are you manipulating it? Are you utilizing it? What's going on there? Is it about you? Is it about using it for the right reason? Is it beyond you? So he's standing there. So Hashem tells him, go. He says, Aaron, you do it. Because Aaron was at the eye of the storm and the trust has been disintegrated and it's going to be rebuilt now through this and through the twigs. Vayikach Aaron kasher diber Moshe. Here we go. And Aaron took as Moses had spoken. Again, we find that. Like, no ego. It's incredible. That's what it's about. This whole thing was about Aaron. He doesn't open his mouth, not once. And he's just like, Moshe says, do, he does. He's not changing. He was passive in that he wanted to see what Hashem wanted from him. And it wasn't about a position. It wasn't about any honor that was coming to him. It was truly about, maybe Hashem doesn't, maybe it's time to change. And now Moshe says, go do this. He'll go do this because he is just a vessel. And it says, and he ran to the midst. It doesn't say he went. It says in Hebrew, vayaratz, and he ran. I ran, because that's what Aaron was. He was so, his his compassion and love was so bubbled up that, the minute he was told this is what he has to do, he ran. Not a moment too soon, not a moment could be wasted, he ran. Every word is precious in this verse. El toch kahal, into the middle, again, in, unified, all together, part of his people. In the middle, doesn't have to say, that word is extra in the Hebrew. There's other ways to say you don't need el toch, into the very midst. That's what it means. He's a part of his people. You could say he's estranged from them. Why shouldn't he be? First they come and they make these terrible accusations against him. Why him and not me? Aaron is bad. Aaron's no good. We're just as good. He's taking all this kavod, this honor for himself. So you got that whole group of people. And then at the end, after it's so clear that Hashem is siding with Aaron, you have the people saying, you killed the assembly of Hashem. So you could think Aaron has his feelings hurt right here. I mean, well, one would assume, that, okay, he's supposed to do it because Hashem said to do it, and he'll do it. But no, he ran. There's no ego in that. And not only, El Tocha Kahal, into the midst of his people, he did not change his attitude about how he was with them and how he saw himself with them. He was still unified with them, still loving them, still compassionate toward them, still very much part of them. He did not feel that estrangement, which you could understand, perhaps even forgive. Then we have that word again. See, I'm going into the Hebrew, so bear with me, because you see that each word, it's not like one word is extra. Every word is a lesson in this verse. And we see this throughout the Torah. Vihine, we said when we see Vihine, it's always a surprise. Only. You will go through the whole Tanakh, you'll see the word Vihine, and know that that's a code for a surprise. Vihine echel anegef ba'am. And behold, the plague had begun. Aaron was actually surprised. He was really surprised. He was really surprised because he was seeing them as they could be. And it was a surprise to him, a painful surprise. And he used the incense to heal the people, to provide an atonement for the people. And it says, and he stood between the dead and the living. Doesn't say he stood between the living and the dead. It said it stood between the dead and the living. Because that sums up Aaron. He was always bringing the walking dead back to life. People who gave up on themselves, people who other people gave up on, people who nobody saw anything in, people who didn't see anything in themselves. And that sums up who Aaron was. So we understand now this vacuum that was created. Why specifically the students of Aaron? Why did everybody adore him so much? Why is the day of his passing marked specifically and exclusively in the Torah to the day, the first of Av? Because he was about unconditional love, but not unconditional love as we may know it today. Because unconditional love is very separate. I don't see, don't hear, don't get involved. You're okay, I'm okay. So, because he loved the way he loved and pursued the way he pursued, he respected Hashem's creations as, love Hashem's creations. He was able to do that. And he was able to affect change in them, umekarvan la Torah, to bring them close to Torah. Torah could be Torah could be, character traits, values, it could be a lot of different things. Because we cannot do that for anybody if we don't go through this entire process of what Aaron was teaching us and illustrating and modeling for us. We could also see, he had so much faith in Hashem and so much faith in others. And so basically when Aaron left, what Hillel the Elder is telling us, that it's up to us. Havei mitalmidav shel Aaron, present, future, now, process. You be the students of Aaron, because it's up to us to fill that void. Hashem believes in us to fill that void. It's an ongoing process in our own life, in our own world, and this is the blessing that I give us, and the hope, I think, for people and for all of Hashem's creations in which He loves so much. And I bless us that when we study the Torah, it becomes a transformative experience. So thank you so very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure, as usual. Thank you.